Bitter Criticism Sunday, reading Pepe Escobar Encrypted Telegram.
Atención, para abrir la puerta del tren, presione el botón cuando se ilumine.
And here we go. '87 updates. What we have? We have a YouTube video, the California Dream, the way it used to be. Oh, this, I don't know, what is this? Not somewhere in Europe. That's Huawei's brand new low carbon data center in parking Gizo. What? Every building is in the peak is a data center. Really? Look. I have to watch careful this because these buildings are kind of historical. These buildings over here, they look like
Estación Portales.
they really look like, I don't know, Europe, yeah. Why? Huawei, well, Huawei, Chinese people are doing something different, very different. And there's a joke. Why are two of our agents fighting in America? Maskirovka Vladimirovich. I didn't got that, but and their Palestinian kids died. Dead Palestinian kids. There's news in French. Site de reflexiones de información Trump c'est fini. I don't speak French too well. I mean nothing. Maybe I have to learn French. I was thinking about learning French. Nothing in English. Come on, give me a break, the Pepe. But Ministry of A. What? The defeat of the West and its dislocation.
El bloqueo de puertas puede provocar retraso. Respeta la alarma de cierre y colabora con un mejor viaje para todos.
Here we go. June 3rd, 2025, the defeat of the West and its dislocation. In 1976, the French anthropologist Emmanuel Todd predicted the downfall of the Soviet Union. After the Empire, first published in French in 2001, he predicted the relative decline of the United States. In his latest and last book, La défaite de l'Occident, The Defeat of the West, he laments the West's inability to distinguish facts from wishes. As seen, wokeism, definitely, as seen in its behavior during the war in Ukraine. Nihilism, a lack of values and of acceptance of reality, has infested Western thinking. Quote, trans ideology is therefore, in my opinion, one of the flags of this nihilism that now defines the West. This drive to destroy not just things and people but reality. Todd recently opened a Substack where he is posting speeches and talks he has given. Two of those, a recent talk given in Russia, in French, and one given in Hungary in English, make mostly similar points. The downfall of the Soviet Union led to deep psychological and societal dislocations in Russia. The defeat of the West, or quote-unquote liberal democracy, is leading to similar consequences in Western societies. While Todd had predicted the fall of the Soviet Union, he had not anticipated the consequences it will have for Russia. Quote, but the collapse of Russia in the 1990s is something I will never have anticipated. The fundamental reason why is I was unable to understand or anticipate the dislocation of Russia itself. Is that I had not understood that communism was not simply a means of organizing economic activity in Russia, but also a kind of religion. It was belief that allowed the system to exist, and the dissolution of that belief represented, of course, something at least as damaging as the dislocation of the economic system. End quote. It took 3 decades for Russia to overcome psychological dislocation that was the result of the destruction of its political and economical system. Todd is suspecting that a similar process is currently happening in the West. Quote, all of this has a bearing upon what is happening today. I will talk about 2 things in my lecture. I will talk about the defeat of the West, by which I mean something quite technical and specific, which is not very complex and has not surprised me. I had anticipated it, and to a certain extent, it's already underway in Ukraine. But we are now in the next phase, which is the dislocation of the West. And I have to say that just as in the dislocation of communism, of the Soviet system, I am unable to understand exactly what is going on. The fundamental attitude that we need to have now is, I will say, an attitude of humility. Everything that's happening, especially since the election of Donald Trump, surprises me. I have been surprised by the violence which Trump has turned against his Ukrainian and European allies, or rather his vassals. Just 1 second. Just keep going, reading the news till the end. And I have been surprised by the violence with which Trump has turned against his Ukrainian and European allies, or rather his vassals. The will of the Europeans to continue or restart the war, even though Europe is certainly the region of the world which will be most advantaged by a peace agreement, has also been a great surprise to me. We have to start from these surprises if we want to think properly about what's going on. Yeah, I was reading yesterday CGTN. Maybe Europe is going to change, is going to give up because of economic opportunities, maybe, who knows. I will discuss those surprises, some of which concern me a lot, in a later piece. The defeat of the Soviet Union and Russia came after it had lost the economic war in the West. It had also lost a war in Afghanistan. The Soviet system had turned out to be a failure. The West, or a Mearsheimer, or as Mearsheimer is arguing in the video, quote-unquote, liberal hegemony has been routed in Afghanistan. The attempts to, quote-unquote, liberate Libya and Syria have failed to the point where the Western, quote-unquote, war on terror launched against Al-Qaeda has led to the installation of an Al-Qaeda bigwig as the new president of Syria. The economic decline of the West is demonstrated by the rise of China. The West's moral self-defeat of its quote-unquote values can be daily witnessed in Gaza. Quote-unquote liberal democracy system of ideas that has for decades been the leading light of the West has failed. Like communism in Russia, quote-unquote liberal democracy has not only an economic side but is also a kind of religion. The failure of this belief system is upon us. The accumulation of defeat after defeat by the quote-unquote liberal democracy system has led to a psychological breakdown, an internal dislocation of the West. This is now leading to irrational acts and to seeking refuge in wishful thinking. And there's a photograph from Napoleon or something. Or as Alistair Krupp is summarizing the phenomenon and warns, quote, the psychological dislocation caused by quote-unquote defeat may explain but not justify the West's quote-unquote curious inability to understand world events. The almost pathological dissociation from the real world that it displays in its words and actions is blindness, for example, to the Russian experience of history and to the long history behind Shia defiance in Iran. Yet, even as the political situation deteriorates, there is no sign of the West becoming more reality-based in its understanding, and it is very likely that it will continue to live in its alternative construction of reality until it forcibly expelled. That's it, posted on June the 3rd. And that's it. It's just a short episode from a short lecture from only one article and some posts from Pepe Escobar's Telegram. It was nice, but I guess is alienation. Europeans are also too imperialists. They always were. And what else? I don't know.